Joining us now is Representative Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee. Representative Blackburn serves on the House Energy and Commerce Committee. And Representative Blackburn, it's so good to have you with us today.
Good to be with you. Thank you, Kathleen.
I want to get your take on TSA hiring practices and some other stories, but first, Wisconsin voters have spoken. Last night, they decided to keep Republican Governor Scott Walker, whose success in ending collective bargaining rights for most state workers led to a recall election. What does Governor Walker's win tell us about the direction voters want Wisconsin and this country to move in?
You know, I think the nugget is there that even union members agreed with Governor Walker. And when you've got 38 to 40% of your union base saying, you know, the governor is right on this, I think it sends a message to organized labor in the unions, and especially those public sector unions, that they're going to have to rethink how they approach the negotiations process.
Now, the GOP wants to push through spending cuts and confront organized labor. What are the implications of the Wisconsin election outcome for the GOP? And do you think it will empower other elected officials to take a similar stand?
Precisely. It will empower other governors and lieutenant governors to move forward and to challenge the out-of-control spending in their states. I think it's also a message to members of Congress in the House and the Senate and to the administration that time has come that they need to start making these systematic cuts in discretionary spending, and they need to get the mandatory entitlement spending and our trust funds, Medicare and Social Security, look at those, get the structure into a position that it's going to be something that we can afford.
Do you think that another Republican revolution is underway now?
I think there's a conservative revolution that's been afoot for quite some period of time. We saw it in Tennessee, my home state, from 99 to 2002, when I led a grassroots effort, a statewide grassroots effort to kill the imposition of a state income tax. The people of our state won that fight, and had a lot of Tea Party type activity that finds its genesis in what we did there in Tennessee. We've seen that come to the federal level. The American people have realized that we, the people, have the power to force our elected officials in government to make these cuts and to basically get the federal government to get them out of our pocketbook.
So do you think that this is a referendum of sorts on President Obama and the Democrats and their political philosophies?
It is, in one regard, a referendum on their policies and positions and the steps that they have taken. It is also a referendum, if you will, on the philosophy of government that the liberal elite hold, which is that they always know best and that they want to centralize power and control. What this is saying is, no, the people understand that with our Constitution, under the laws under which we live and abide, the people of this country are going to stand up. They're going to be the people, and they're going to demand that governmental entities begin to scale back, reduce their size, reduce their spending.
Representative Blackburn, let's switch gears and move on to TSA hiring practices. I know this is a big concern of yours. You just released a report showing more than 50 TSA employees were arrested since 2005, and that number you have said could go much higher. Should the public be worried, and what needs to be done to improve our airport screening operations?
The public should indeed be very concerned about this issue, because what has happened is the TSA has usurped authority. They have decided that they're going to be in charge when your airport security officers or transportation security officers, as they are now called, because the TSA has chosen to reposition those titles, they're really airport security screeners. And what we need to do is move the TSA out of the human resource business. When you look at the crimes that have been committed by many of these people that are now wearing a federal law enforcement uniform, even though they have no federal law enforcement training, it is imperative that we pass the legislation that I've authored. It's called the STRIP Act, and it takes these TSA screeners and processors out of these federal law enforcement uniforms, takes the metal badges returns them to their mission of assisting the traveling public as they go through screening at the nation's airport.
Okay, to another story, the apparent backroom deal between Big Pharma and the White House in crafting President Obama's sweeping healthcare law. The House Energy and Commerce Oversight and Investigation Subcommittee recently released a memo and supporting documentation outlining a series of negotiations between both parties. Update us on where things stand right now with the investigation, and do you think President Obama was aware of this deal?
Oh, President Obama had to be aware of these deals. When you look at the fact that you had these CEOs of pharmaceutical companies going to the White House, meeting with the chief of staff, meeting with the healthcare czar, absolutely. This was a deal that they were making behind closed doors. It also shows that the president's words of saying, we're going to be transparent, we're going to be opening, we're going to put all of these hearings on C-SPAN did not occur. Because what we found and have seen through the emails is that they crafted a deal, if you will, to raise $80 billion from the pharmaceuticals. This was all very carefully orchestrated. It was done in June and July of 2009. The American people should be incensed. This is one of the ways they planned to offset the cost of Obamacare, because they knew full well that this was going to be a program that was too expensive to afford. They knew the American people did not want a government takeover of health care, but regardless, they went forward with these backroom deal-making sessions in order to craft this pharmaceutical deal. And I tell you, we've worked on this since February of 2011, and there is a lot more to come.
Is there anything in the documents that suggests a criminal act was committed, and who should be held accountable for this deal?
The individuals that should be held accountable for this are, in my opinion, the administration, because it is very clear when you read the emails. They were even cutting some of the Democrats, especially the House Democrats, out. I think it's one of the reasons that you heard Speaker Pelosi say we had to pass the bill in order to read the bill and find out what was in it. And that is completely unacceptable. And for an administration that said, we're going to put all of these negotiations on television, we're going to televise all of it, it looks like that one of the big deals was crafted inside the gates of the White House.
So how do we hold these individuals accountable?
Let's get further into it and see how we need to hold them accountable. One thing we can do is make certain that Congress says Obamacare was a bad deal, and that we start fresh as we look at health care delivery systems and needed health care reforms for the 21st century.
Now, since we're speaking about Obamacare, President Obama recently suggested to a group of donors that he isn't sure his sweeping health care law will be upheld by the Supreme Court, and that he's looking for ways to change health care in a second term. What do you make of his remarks? And you attended the Supreme Court hearings. Do you think it'll be found unconstitutional?
I do think they're going to find it unconstitutional. I'm not sure if they'll take down the whole law or if they'll take down the individual mandate. And for the president, we don't want the kind of health care reform he's bringing, because it is government control. Look at what is taking place at HHS with 3,400 new mandates, with all of these new agencies. People can go to my website, blackburn.house.gov, and look at the chart that shows all these new agencies. They can follow us on Facebook, or they can go to us on Twitter at Marsha Blackburn and follow what is taking place with this. This kind of government centralized control, where you've got bureaucrats in Washington that are going to make determinations about patients and providers when you're trying to get answers and figure out what is there. We don't want it. Let me tell you what I think the American people do want. They want Washington, and they want Congress to say that Obamacare was a bad idea. They want us to say, look, this is our opportunity. It's what we as conservatives want. It's start fresh. Clean sheet of paper, and let's start over.
Last question for you, Representative Blackburn. On Tuesday, the Congressional Budget Office reported that the U.S. debt would double in 25 years if current tax and spending policies are left in place. is the U.S. on the precipice now of that fiscal cliff? And is this even more reason to extend the Bush tax cuts and for Congress to make significant cuts in entitlement programs like Medicare and Medicaid?
You know, the CBO report is just so interesting to read, and individuals can also read that by going to our blackburn.house.gov website. And here is the nugget that I took away from it. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the alternative plan or the expected plan, you've got to cut spending. And we have to cut our discretionary spending. I favor the across-the-board cuts that I run every single year. We have to put some implementations in place and stabilizations in place around Medicare and Social Security, which are our trust funds. And then we have to seriously look at what is happening with Medicaid and our entitlements. Those are steps we're going to have to take.
Representative Marsha Blackburn, Republican from Tennessee, thanks so much for joining us
today. So good to
today.
be with you. Thank you.
And thank you for watching Newsmax TV.